Last night I got a call from a friend and asked, hey, my mom is here on a traveling visa, is not here on a working visa. Am I going to get stopped? Again, I don't even know the difference, right? We're not immigration officers. Very important that we train and train and train, because we want to avoid the racial profiling part of this law.
A lot of questions tonight as Texas's controversial immigration law, SB 4, goes through yet another round of legal whiplash. It's already causing chaos and confusion for both local cops and migrants at the border who are scrambling to make sense of a law that would make crossing the Texas border illegal and illegally a state crime. I'm Gadi Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. And right now, SB 4 is on hold yet again, this time as a federal appeals court takes up the case to decide if Texas should be allowed to give local police the authority to arrest migrants suspected of illegally crossing the border instead of just Border Patrol and ICE officers. And if this is sounding very confusing, kind of like a case of deja vu, that's because the last few days have been an absolute Supreme Court appeals court whirlwind. On Monday, the Supreme Court put an indefinite hold on SB 4. Then they decided Texas could actually start enforcing the new law while the lower courts try to figure it out. But then just hours later, one of those lower courts temporarily blocked it again and then scheduled oral arguments for this morning, leading to some moments like this where both judges and lawyers seemed on shaky ground. Take a listen.
So what if someone enters in, let's say, from Mexico into Arizona and lives there for 5 years, then moves to Texas? Are they covered?
I don't know the answer. I think that, I'm reading the text, maybe.
Maybe. All the uncertainty is leaving cops and migrants at the border just as confused and wary about what to do.
Now, if when we arrive, we encounter this new law, everything becomes more complicated for us because we can't keep moving forward. I believe that they keep shutting doors on us every day.
Meanwhile, Texas Governor Greg Abbott said today that the court-ordered stay on SB 4 won't stop arrests of people coming across the border.
But even without SB 4, Texas has the legal authority to arrest people coming across the razor wire barriers on our border, and we will continue to use our arrest authority and arrest people coming across the border illegally.
And NBC News correspondent David Noriega joins us now from Eagle Pass, Texas. David, we've been talking about this all week. So much back and forth in some very powerful courtrooms, but they're on the border. You're there. You were here in L.A. talking about it a few days ago. From what you're seeing, are arrests happening or not?
Gadi, the law was only in effect for a few hours yesterday, and it was not long enough for arrests to actually happen, at least as far as we know. This is really what's at stake right now. Nobody knows whether this law is going to go into effect indefinitely or not. It's really a question of whether it goes into effect while the case works its way through the courts, long enough for Texas to actually start implementing it in a way that has an impact on migrants crossing the border and on all of the people who are going to have to sort of navigate the fallout from this case, from law enforcement officers to lawyers. That has not happened yet, but, I'm done making predictions about this case. It could happen. It also could not happen. That is exactly what we're all waiting anxiously to find out.
That is a very safe prediction to make there. So in this bill, what happens if a migrant from somewhere that's other than Mexico crosses the Texas-Mexico border? Do they get deported back to Mexico? Do they get repatriated back to their country? How does that even work?
Nobody knows, Gadi. I would like to point out that actually during the oral arguments this morning, even the lawyer representing Texas, when asked that question directly by one of the judges in this 3-judge panel, could not give a concrete and definite answer to that question. So even Texas, which is fighting to implement this law, does not know the answer. That is, I think, one of I think it's definitely the most uncharted piece of generally very uncharted territory here. Look, I spoke with Amruta Jindal. She runs an organization that has provided pro bono legal representation to migrants arrested by Texas under Operation Lone Star. That's the program that's been in place for 3 years now, where Texas law enforcement arrests migrants who cross the Rio Grande and prosecutes them under existing state trespassing statutes. She and her organization would also represent migrants arrested under SB 4. And I asked her, how is this going to work, particularly this deportation provision? I'll play you a short clip of what she had to say. Take a listen.
Once they're out of the court system and they're turned over to state law enforcement and then potentially told to cross the bridge back into Mexico, we won't have eyes on them. We won't know what will happen to them. And so that's really a big concern is the chaos that'll ensue.
One thing we haven't considered much so far, Gadi, is that it's possible some parts of this law could go into effect while others are prevented from going into effect. I think if that happens, probably it's that deportation part that we won't see happen because it is so very uncertain.
David, you said you weren't going to make any predictions, and you just predicted something that is even more complex than I can wrap my head around. So many moving pieces to this. Very simply, Eagle Pass, right there on the border. What is the vibe like right now?
Yeah. It's pretty quiet here, Gadi, but I would say that the feeling, not just here in Eagle Pass, but in Texas generally, especially among the folks that we've been talking to, who, again, are the people who would be tasked with navigating this law being implemented, the last week or so has just been really intense whiplash. It's been a roller coaster. People have been preparing their entire sort of lives to change from one day to the next if this law actually gets put into place. And it's getting put into place, and then it gets paused again, then put in place, then paused again. There's just a lot of sort of, I think, stress, exhaustion, and anxiety, and it will continue until we get some kind of definite or at least lasting answer on whether this law is actually going to get put into practice. Gadi?
No one I know knows this better than you. David Noriega, thank you so much for covering this for us. And in Washington, we saw a day of shouting, bickering, and tense back and forth between Republicans and Democrats in the House Oversight Committee over that whole impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden.
Because in the course of this investigation, we have learned that Joe Biden has taken action after action to further his family's plans to get rich. He shows up to meetings, gets on phone calls, shakes hands, and tells people to, quote, look after my family.
Today, the good chairman and his ace MAGA detectives have finally jumped the shark. The comedy of errors comes crashing to an end as House Republicans in more than a dozen Biden districts beg for mercy, and the committee throws a flabby Hail Mary pass.
Now, that marathon all-day hearing just ended on Capitol Hill. At the heart of this is the president's son, Hunter Biden, and the Biden's business ties. And Republicans called two of Hunter Biden's former business partners to testify, including one who called in from prison because he's serving time for securities fraud. The Democratic witness was a longtime associate of Rudy Giuliani, who is also a convicted felon. Lev Parnas was sentenced to 20 months in prison a couple of years ago for campaign finance crimes. Today, he talked about being part of a previous effort to dig up dirt on then-candidate Joe Biden. And he essentially admitted that this impeachment inquiry is based on Russian propaganda and Russian lies.
Today, I ask you to consider the following. In nearly a year traveling the world and interviewing officials in different countries, I found precisely zero evidence of the Biden's corruption in Ukraine. No credible source has ever provided proof of criminal activity. The only information ever pushed on the Bidens in Ukraine has come from one source, and one source only: Russia and Russian agents. The impeachment proceedings that bring us here now are predicated on false information spread by the Kremlin.
NBC News NBC News ace Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now. Ryan, what a day. Lev Parnas talking there. You also got a chance to speak to him after he addressed the committee. What did he tell you?
Yeah, that's right, Gadi. And the interview that we were able to conduct with him, along with my colleague Sarah Fitzpatrick, is significant. He really hasn't done any extensive television interviews since back in 2020 when he was a part of the original Trump impeachment inquiry. So this is the second time that he's been called to testify as part of a presidential impeachment inquiry. And he was very specific with me. He said that, part of his job, the reason he was hired by Rudy Giuliani was specifically to go into Ukraine and dig up corruption related to the Biden family, both Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. And he said he spent a lot of time and money doing that and basically came up with nothing. But what he did discover, it is in his mind that not only did he not discover any real corruption by the Biden family, but he did discover Russian misinformation that he says Republicans are still peddling to this day. Take a listen.
They're not getting down to the truth. All they're doing is pushing the same Russian narrative and propaganda. They're filibustering. I was there for 8 hours expecting to go over all of the stuff and letting them ask me, grill me questions to get to the bottom, to the truth. And they didn't ask me one question.
So explain to me why you're so certain that a lot of this is Russian disinformation.
I was a point person on the ground, not only for Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump, but for Devin Nunes and Derek Harvey. Everything that had to do with Ukraine, I became the point person.
And Parnas also told me, Gadi, that he believes that Russia is still actively trying to be involved in the election this time around, and it's something that American politicians need to be wary of. Gadi.
Such a fascinating interview there. I know that Congressman James Comer has said that he wants President Biden to testify before the committee, Hunter Biden possibly to testify before the committee. Any word from the White House, or will we see the Bidens testifying at all?
So there's always the possibility that they are able to work out some arrangement for Hunter Biden to testify. But I can say with 100% confidence that we will never see President Biden testify as part of this impeachment inquiry. The White House has already rejected this idea out of hand. It's rare for presidents to ever testify on Capitol Hill under any circumstances, but especially in the height of an impeachment inquiry, one that the White House believes that Republicans have really made no progress on or delivered any evidence related to.
And after Lev's testimony there, I mean, what happens next? Does this start to fizzle and die, or are Republicans doubling down at all? Does this move the needle at all?
I really don't think it did, Gadi. And I've talked to a lot of Republicans who are very skeptical about the idea of bringing impeachment articles to the floor of the House of Representatives. And I do think there is a truth here. If they had the votes, they would have already voted on this. But I think our viewers do need to kind of really understand that there's not going to be a press conference. Republicans are not going to get together and say, well, we finished up the impeachment inquiry. We don't have enough to file for articles of impeachment, so we're just going to wrap this thing up. It's not going to work that way. They'll probably just continue to say that the impeachment inquiry is ongoing without providing much detail as to what they're exactly doing. Gadi.
Ryan Nobles, thanks so much. Man, you know how online sometimes there's some sort of hot controversy and whoever's involved will throw up a poll? Well, that might be about to happen in the whole TikTok being banned saga, but instead of commenting online, it would be commenting in the halls of Congress, instead of seeing a lot of posts like these.
Taking away TikTok and banning TikTok is a really, 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 really grave mistake, not only for New York constituents, but creators, entrepreneurs everywhere.
At first glance, yeah, it's just a dancing app, but people have built businesses on here.
I use this app every night before I go to bed. I've met some of my best friends on this app. Email these people because they are the Senate. They are quite literally the ones deciding whether we get to see each other every day or not.
So it looks like lawmakers are hearing out their constituents, even considering holding public hearings and working on different legislation to regulate the app as opposed to ban it altogether, while other lawmakers just came out of a closed-door meeting on security concerns and say from everything they have seen, the ban should happen ASAP. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale has more.
Hey, Gadi, here on Capitol Hill, another day, another time debating whether or not to ban TikTok. But I think what's important here is when I talk to senators leaving a classified briefing on the national security threat that TikTok poses, they were clear. This is not a ban on TikTok, but it is about a change in ownership. Watch.
And this legislation is not about banning TikTok. It's making a transition from the current control by the Communist Party of China to some other owner.
TikTok is a gun aimed at Americans' heads. The Chinese communists are weaponizing information that they are constantly, surreptitiously collecting from 170 million Americans. I think this information ought to be declassified. The American people should be told everything that we heard. There is absolutely no reason to keep it secret.
Now, when Blumenthal uses that really evocative language there, Gadi, saying that TikTok is a gun pointed at the head of Americans, I think my immediate question to him and my immediate thought was, don't you want to get that gun off of the head of Americans as soon as possible? But that's where the question of urgency comes in. And in the Senate, even when things have momentum behind them, they have a tendency to move really, really slowly. In my conversations with senators and sources close to moving this TikTok legislation forward, there's a few different holdups. First, the fact that the Senate has a lot of other things to do, including funding the government, that are more pressing and will take up more time that they can't be dedicating to a conversation or debate around TikTok. The second piece of this, too, is although the House did pass the legislation and did so quite quickly, the Senate isn't sure that they want to just take up that bill as it is. I've spoken to senators who want to make little tweaks around it and other senators who think that there's other Senate legislation that would be better served to this current moment. That means that they're not just going to have something as simple as tacking on a few amendments, making a few changes, and then passing the House bill and banning TikTok. This is going to be a lengthier process. I'm not talking days. I'm not talking weeks. I'm really talking months, but that's the cadence here in Washington. Even when there's concern, even when there's urgency, it's still not enough to be a 4-alarm fire emergency, even after senators used really visceral language like the kind we heard today. Gadi?
And right now, the U.S. may design the world's most advanced computer chips, which power everything from your smartphone to fighter jets to your refrigerator. But none of those chips are actually made in America. All of them are manufactured in plants overseas in places like Taiwan and China, which is problematic because the world can be a pretty shaky place these days, as we saw when the global supply lines had all kinds of issues during the pandemic, mostly because of a shortage of chips, not to mention all the tensions we see right now between Taiwan and China. But there is a chance that American-designed, American-made chips could have a big comeback. Today, the president was out promoting this massive investment that could bring chip making back stateside. Today, he announced that Intel will get $8.5 billion under the Chips and Sciences Act. That funding will go to manufacturing plants in Arizona, Ohio, New Mexico, and Oregon. And the deal also provides Intel with up to $11 billion in loans.
Nearly all manufacturing of leading-edge chips across the entire industry moved overseas to Asia years ago. That's why today's investment is such a big deal. We will enable advanced semiconductor manufacturing to make a comeback here in America after 40 years. By the way, parenthetically, I said we're going to become the manufacturing capital of the world again. People looked at me like I was nuts. Where the hell's it written saying we're not going to be the manufacturing capital of the world again? We've already created 825,000 new manufacturing jobs, and you're just getting us started.
Those are some big words for some of the smallest things we make on Earth. NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans joins us now from Chandler. Christine, chip designing and chip manufacturing are two very, very different beasts. And when it comes to making chips, we're talking about fabs that have to be able to engineer like billions of transistors that are less than 2 nanometers big, right? I mean, what's it going to take to be competitive here?
It's just remarkable. And the smaller the chip is, the bigger the fab or the production facility to make them. And, you know, behind me here, you've got 6,000 people making this new location here in Chandler. And, you know, bottom line here, it's national security. Gadi, you laid it out so well. I sat down with the president's director of the National Economic Council today, and I said, look, why is this so imperative? Listen. Why is it so important to have semiconductors manufactured in the United States?
Semiconductors are used in so many important defense weapon systems, in satellites, in all kinds of areas that are vital to our national security. And so it's critical to have the manufacturing of advanced semiconductors coming back to America.
And I'll remind you that, you know, this was bipartisan legislation. This is something that passed with ease and quickly on Capitol Hill a couple of years ago because both parties agree you can't be left in some kind of a lurch, you know, if China were to invade Taiwan, for example, where most of these chips are made.
Now, it's one thing to see behind you the scaffolding going up and the big caterpillars and all the different heavy machinery that you're using to build a building on the outside. On the inside, like it is, I don't know, it is like alchemy that happens in some of these fabs when you're manufacturing things in such an advanced way. Is this enough to move the needle? I mean, this has been something that has become a specialty over in Taiwan and parts of China as well. Yeah. And do we even have the workforce that is able to do that type of manufacturing in the United States?
So the CEO of Intel, Pat Gelsinger, he thinks that they do, and he thinks that there'll be good pay for a lot of these skilled manufacturing jobs. But he's also saying we're talking about PhDs who are designing new, inventing new molecules. I mean, the kinds of stuff, you're right, that's happening back there, I can't even kind of fathom when this thing opens in a couple of years. But all production will not come back here. There's just, Taiwan is the center of the universe for semiconductor manufacturing. But what's interesting about Intel, it designs them and manufactures them. A lot of these other chip makers, they design them and then they send them someplace else or vice versa. So this is kind of a unique situation for Intel in these 4 different states. 30,000 jobs overall, 20,000 jobs overall they're expecting to be permanent from those 4 locations.
It's pretty poetic that's coming back down to Intel. I mean, Intel's history is founded by the guy that Moore's Law is named after. And now, we're starting to see some of that come back. Fascinating stuff. Christine Romans, thanks so much.
Nice to see you.
That's some big news out of the Federal Reserve today. Just kidding. There was no news again, but that in and of itself is actually pretty significant news because for the 5th straight time, the Fed announced it will not be changing interest rates. Right now, it is holding steady at just below 5.5% as the Fed tries to control inflation. And for the past 9 months, that has been between 3 and 4%. So if you want to buy a house or even just save some money on some eggs, what does all this mean? Let's bring in NBC's business and data reporter Brian Chung to find out. Brian, no rate hikes, no cuts for 5 straight months. Is no news good news here?
Yeah, this is kind of my favorite story because what happens is the Fed doesn't do something and then you're like, oh, that's the news that they didn't do anything. But look, at the end of the day, this shows that they're kind of on the path to mission accomplished on getting that big story of inflation done, but not quite yet. And that's because, again, the reason why they raised interest rates so dramatically during 2022 or 2023 in the first place was to tamp down the high inflation that peaked at around 9% in the summer of 2022. Now it's about 3.2%. So that's certainly progress. The problem is that the Fed's goal, it's 2%. So basically what they're doing right now is, okay, before we declare mission accomplished and, start cutting interest rates, we want to make sure that inflation is going to finish that last mile, make it from 3.2% to 2%. So they're just going to let them hang at this high level for the time being while they continue to get more data on inflation. That's what we heard from Jay Powell, who you see those images of in front of you. He was basically saying, let's just see, be patient with it, and then make sure that we're really on the path to fixing this whole inflation issue.
So how does the average American notice this? Where are you going to see this pop up? And what does it mean for people's savings?
Yeah, well, I mean, when it comes to what the Federal Reserve does on short-term interest rates, those have indirect impacts on where other types of borrowing rates for things like mortgages, credit cards, home equity lines of credit, car loans, also savings and CDs. Actually, one byproduct of the Fed raising interest rates isn't just it gets more expensive to borrow. It actually becomes a little bit more lucrative for you to save your money as well. Now, things that I want to clarify here that aren't impacted necessarily by this. If you already have a fixed rate mortgage, you already have a car loan, well, you already signed the terms of those agreements, so you're not going to have any sort of impact from the decisions today or going forward. Same thing with federal student loans, which there's an agreement per the contract that you have with your student loan provider. So, these are the types of things that, again, credit cards, it's a big deal. These are things that certainly have an everyday impact.
And so now that we're looking at the clock being reset, what's the next time we can expect a drop or no news or maybe some good news?
Some news and some, yeah. Oh, well, when it comes to the Federal Reserve's calendar, they do have these meetings on a set schedule. So there are 8 of them across the year. That means there's 6 left. The next decision is going to be on May 1st. But interestingly, the Federal Reserve, as part of its announcement today, it had projections for where it could see interest rates going by the end of this year. And the policymakers at the Federal Reserve see a likelihood that there could be interest rate cuts before we reach the end of this year. In fact, how many? Perhaps 3. The median member of the committee projecting 325 basis points or 0.75 percentage points in total of interest rate cuts by the end of this year. Again, that could bleed through in the form of marginally lower mortgage rates or credit card rates by the end of the year. So we'll have to watch out for that.
Wait, hold on. You used a lot of quick math there at the last minute there.
Yeah.
You said 3 cuts, but then you said 0.75. 3 cuts of 0.75 or 3 cuts that are going to be
3 cuts of a quarter percentage point adding up to 0.75%. Yeah, hey, sorry for the math there.
Every little bit counts. NBC's Brian Chung. Thanks so much, bro. And don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. Up next, police in Idaho are on the hunt for an escaped inmate. Details on where they're looking and how he got away before shooting 2 officers are ahead. Or in the future of everything, NASA is looking for a few good men and women to join their astronaut program. Do you have what it takes? Then you don't want to miss this. Stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. There is a pretty intense manhunt going on right now in Idaho for an escaped inmate. We're going to tell you more about that in just a minute. But first, here are some other stories happening out west. One person is dead after a house exploded in Utah. Now, this happened around 6 this morning. It was caught on a neighbor's doorbell camera. The explosion was so big, it hit nearby power lines, and fire crews managed to rescue one of the 2 people believed to be in that duplex, but police still have not released the identity of the woman who was killed. And staying in Utah, there might be a twist in the case of the grief writer Corey Richins. She's the one who wrote a kid's book about dealing with grief after her husband died, later to be accused of spiking her husband's drink with a fatal dose of fentanyl. Now investigators say Corey's mom might have also had a role in allegedly planning the suspicious overdose. So far, they haven't filed any charges against her. And Corey's lawyer is slamming those allegations, saying it's a wild conspiracy theory. And a California police department has become famous for replacing suspects' faces with Lego heads. And if you're wondering why, it turns out there's a new California law this year that restricts how police can share photos and mugshots. But the Marietta Police Department said they're being transparent while complying with the law by protecting the identities of the suspects. And in Idaho, there is a manhunt after a prison escape that was so brazen it sounds almost like some sort of Hollywood heist. Investigators say guards were moving a prisoner from a hospital back to lockup when they were ambushed by a gunman. And in the chaos of that shootout, the prisoner got away. And this prisoner is a very violent guy. His name is Skylar Meade. Investigators say he's part of a white supremacist gang who was serving 20 years for shooting at cops during a high-speed chase. And minutes ago, police identified the suspected shooter as a Nicholas Umfauer. Investigators say Meade and the shooter were last seen in this 4-door gray getaway car, possibly a Honda Civic there. The 2 officers who were shot during the attack are now in stable condition. And NBC News correspondent Dana Griffin joins us now. Dana, this seems super coordinated. Did police say how the gunman may have known where Meade was going to be exactly when he was there?
So you're spot on with this being super coordinated. This was highly sophisticated. They did not give details, but they alluded to this was self-inflicted injuries that forced him to go to the hospital. They checked him out at the prison, but their staff said, you got to send him to the hospital. So it's likely that he did this knowing that his accomplice would be there to help bust him out of the hospital. And we've got new details. This is the photo of the accomplice that investigators have just identified as Nicholas Umfauer. They say he was driving that vehicle. He's the guy who shot at those officers, injuring 2. A third was caught in the crossfire. So take a good look. This is also the getaway vehicle. Again, they say he could be anywhere. They don't know where these 2 are located, but they say they are dangerous. So if you see them, do not approach, call 911.
Have the police been able to narrow down the search at all? I mean, look, we don't know the exact details, but we know that the self-inflicted wound ended him up in the hospital. We know that they've identified him. Maybe they're going through some phone records or something. Do we know anything about where that search is?
We don't know, because during the press conference hours ago, they said they had no idea where that vehicle was. Remember, this happened at 2 o'clock in the morning. Right. So they had a good start on police. So they could be hours out of Idaho, if they may not even be in Idaho anymore. So that's why this is now making national news, because these 2 men could be anywhere. And it's a good reminder to be careful. And the guy, the inmate, is very noticeable. He's very recognizable. He's got several tattoos on his face, on his body. He just got treated for that for an injury, so he may have some sort of stitching or bandage. So it's important to keep a lookout for this guy. That photo, by the way, that was one of the latest released images from the jail. We don't know if that was the exact injury, but we're assuming it may be connected because he was shown bloodied and handcuffed.
So bloodied and handcuffed, also, like you were saying, face tattoos, right? What do we know about this Aryan gang or this white supremacist gang?
Yeah, so investigators say that he is a member of this white supremacist gang, the Aryan Knights. And so they are, I don't know if that has anything to do with the potential accomplice. They have not released any details about this alleged accomplice, but it just gives you more details about his background. And he's got a lengthy rap sheet. He's got several felonies, including a 2016 conviction for a shootout during a high-speed chase with deputies. He was scheduled for parole in 2026. Obviously, he didn't want to wait that long. So here we are today. And this guy is highly dangerous, as you mentioned, according to police, because of the lengths he went to get out of jail.
Let's pray this ends peacefully. Dana, thanks so much. And fitness guru Richard Simmons is opening up about being diagnosed for skin cancer. And it comes one day after he made some cryptic posts about dying that he says were meant to be motivational messages on life. NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett has more.
Gadi, it was an unexpected announcement from Richard Simmons, his fans growing increasingly concerned as details unfolded over the last couple of days, especially because he hasn't been seen in public in years.
Let's sweat again! Tonight, fitness guru Richard Simmons, known for his energy and his dance workout videos like this one, revealing on social media that he had skin cancer, telling followers he was treated 3 times to, quote, get all the cancer cells out. This comes only days after he put a cryptic post on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, writing, "Please don't be sad. I am dying. The truth is, we are all dying." The Weight Saint continued his thread with diet and workout tips, before adding, "Tell the ones that you love them. Hug those people and children you really care for." How you feeling?
Simmons' words initially startling fans who have floated countless conspiracy theories because he hasn't been seen in public in years. He debunked the rumors in a Today Show phone interview.
I just sort of wanted to be a little bit of a loner for a while.
Simmons was quick to walk back the post, saying he's not really dying and apologizing for any confusion. It was a message about how we should embrace every day that we have. His spokesperson tells NBC News it's intended as an inspirational message. Now, he's detailing his experience with basal cell carcinoma, though it's unclear when he was diagnosed. Saying when he first found out the name of the cancer, he told the doctor, "Stop calling me dirty names." It's the most common form of skin cancer, according to the American Academy of Dermatology, and it's not life-threatening for most people. Simmons now motivating people way beyond the gym with this new revelation. Simmons says that he had to go through several procedures with doctors where they burned the skin off his face, the skin where the cancer was found, but it took 3 times. He said 3rd time's the charm, apparently, and everything is resolved. He says he barely even has a scar. That's how well everything healed. Now, Simmons acknowledges that his bout with cancer is incomparable to others with more severe forms, but in general, he wanted to warn and advise his fans to go see their doctors and get their complete checkups. Gadi?
Maura Barrett, thanks so much. And coming up, it may officially be spring, but as far as Mother Nature is concerned, not so much. There are winter alerts for parts of the Northeast, and they could see up to 8 inches of snow. Meteorologist Bill Cairns will be here with some more. First, you gotta see this. This is a 30-year-old, 750-pound alligator, and it was living inside someone's house in New York City. So the city goes that the alligator was illegally being kept in a residence in Hamburg, New York. Officials say the owner of the home actually built an addition to his house and installed a swimming pool for that big guy, but the owner was also allegedly allowing neighbors to get in the pool with the 11-foot-long gator to pet him, and that obviously is not the safest of situations. So officials moved the gator to a licensed pro to take care of him for the time being. Lesson learned, if there is a gator in the pool at your next barbecue, don't go in the water. We'll be right back. Hey there, welcome back. We are keeping our eye on some severe weather in the Northeast. Bill Cairns is going to have more on that in just a second. But first, here's some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. Republican Congressman Michael McCall of Texas is saying sorry to Republican Congressman Darrell Issa of California for saying go F himself after Issa went over his time talking at a committee meeting. McCall said it was a long day and he lost his temper. For the first time in more than 4 years, a Georgia man was scheduled to be put to death today, but his lawyers made a last-minute appeal to the Supreme Court. Willie James Pye was convicted of killing his former girlfriend 3 decades ago. And the executive director of an Arkansas airport was shot in a firefight with the FBI. The federal agents arrived at his home at 6 a.m. to serve some sort of search warrant, and according to his brother, he was shot in the head, and they're not sure if he's going to survive. The Delta pilot has been sentenced to 10 months in prison for showing up drunk to a flight. Lawrence Russell Jr., an American citizen, was scheduled to fly a Boeing 767 from Scotland to New York City when he reported for duty with a blood alcohol level over the limit. When his bag was searched, agents found 2 bottles of Jägermeister, including one that was just under half full. And in Pennsylvania, 4 children and their father were killed in a house fire. The kids spanned from 1 month old to 7 years. The mother and 2 other children were able to escape through a second-story window. And we might officially be in spring, but that is not stopping Mother Nature. A big old snowstorm is expected all across the country this week. Right now, places like Vermont and upstate New York are looking kind of like a winter wonderland, and folks in the northern Midwest, well, get ready because it looks like you might be next. NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns joins us now. Hey, Bill.
Good evening to you, Gadi, and I like to call this second winter. Everyone was kind of fooled. It got so warm and it was so nice, 70s all the way up to Minneapolis, and now everyone's like, ugh. This is how I remember springs normally being. A lot of people are going to be shoveling in the weeks ahead. So let's talk about the Northeast first. That's where we're dealing with the snow squalls. That was a story during the day today. But right behind it, already some new snow moving in. This isn't going to be a huge ordeal, but it is going to cover the ground, and there will be some shoveling to be done in areas of Montana, especially North Dakota through Minnesota. Winter weather advisories are up. They've been issued now from Glasgow to Bismarck, Fargo, and Minneapolis and the St. Paul area. It looks like for Minneapolis, St. Paul, Friday morning is when the roads will be the most treacherous. And as far as how much snow are we talking? Northern Montana, where you get into the blue, that's where I call, you get the plowable or shovelable snow, 3 to 6 inches, and that's from Glasgow to Bismarck to Fargo. That includes the Minneapolis area. So enough to be annoying, especially in a lot of areas where the grass is green and the flowers are already coming up. And then when we head into the Northeast, this will be more of a Saturday morning event, and heavy snow, especially northern half of New England. Could be like a heavy wet snow, maybe some power outages. And the other issues, there's going to be the heavy rain on the East Coast. It's going to be a very ugly Saturday along the eastern seaboard. So here's how it's all going to play out as we go throughout our Thursday into Friday. Friday's when the snow is in areas of Michigan. And look at Friday afternoon and evening. This is ugly. This is all heavy rain. Knoxville, Atlanta, Charleston, Charlotte, Raleigh. D.C., it looks like late Friday evening. New York City and Philly, it's going to be an ugly Saturday morning. It should pour throughout much of the morning and then finally begin to clear out as we go throughout the late afternoon. And a lot of people are asking, like, how long is this going to last? And Gadi, here's the sad part. As we look at the 8 to 14-day outlook, this goes out to the end of March, beginning of April. Much of the West below average temperatures, not many areas above average at all. And on top of that, it looks very wet for the West Coast and Rockies, and that means more snow in the mountains and cooler than average temperatures, and a lot of people complaining about not enough sunshine. So, yeah, apologies. Definitely doesn't feel or look like spring yet.
Let's take you around the world real quick. In a surprise move today, Ireland's prime minister has stepped down, saying he's leaving the job for both, quote, personal and political reasons. But the move also comes after voters rejected changes to its constitution that the prime minister was pushing for. And armed gangs in Haiti are reportedly now moving into the suburbs outside of Port-au-Prince, which is happening as the U.S. State Department says they have evacuated the first group of Americans out of the capital today. And all of this is happening as Caribbean leaders say they are getting closer to putting together a team to choose Haiti's next leader. And Secretary of State Antony Blinken's first stop on his most recent Mid-East trip is Saudi Arabia. He's there to try to cut a deal between Israel and Hamas for a pause in the fighting, along with the release of Israeli hostages. Blinken is scheduled to make a quick stop in Israel on Friday to continue those talks. And speaking of Saudi Arabia, the country is trying to become the world's biggest AI investor with plans to create a $40 billion investment to do it. The country sees this move as a chance to diversify its domestic business model away from oil. And before we go, it is time for the future of everything. And tonight, We're talking about a job that could be yours in the future. Do you like to travel? Or are you looking for ways to add up those frequent flyer miles like really quickly? Well, maybe you'd be a perfect fit for NASA's next batch of astronauts. It is no joke. It is an actual job posting up on the website right now, and we are taking a look. So stay tuned. And in tonight's Future of Everything, Apple and Google, two of the most consequential companies on planet Earth, might be in talks about taking the iPhone and putting it into AI, with an AI phone, if you will. If the deal gets done, it would involve Gemini being used to power some of the features on Apple's flagship device. Bloomberg was the first to report on the conversations, and that report also says Apple isn't just talking about licensing AI with one company. They've also apparently touched base with OpenAI about ChatGPT. Apple declined to comment to our friends over at CNBC, and no comment from Alphabet, Google's parent company, either. The two companies are tech giants, but they're not shy about working together. Google remains the primary search engine on iPhones, and Alphabet pays to make that happen. And we are getting a clearer picture about just how well NASA's effort to smash an asteroid went. You might remember the DART test from September of 2022. That was when they flung a spacecraft into a 560-foot wide space rock. Well, the goal there was to see if it changed the orbit. It did change that orbit, and now NASA says the impact also changed the asteroid into this kind of watermelon shape. Take a look at some of the pictures we have from a newly published study. On your left, that's what it looked like pre-DART, squashed ball. On the right, after rounded still but elongated. NASA says the mission exceeded expectations. And now for the future of jobs and a particular want ad that is out of this world. NASA is looking for astronauts, and it's the first time in 4 years that the job has been posted. Now, only a few of the thousands of resumes submitted will eventually be selected. So what does it take to become a NASA astronaut?
First up, to be a NASA astronaut, you have to be a U.S. citizen.
You need to have a master's degree in STEM. That is science, technology, engineering, and math.
You must have 3 years of related professional experience and be able to complete NASA's long-duration flight physical.
Shoot, I think I have 2 of those 4. Some other things to consider. April 2nd is the deadline to submit. According to the job posting, the salary for an astronaut these days is about $150K. NASA also wants you to know about the extensive travel requirement. And joining us now is someone who knows all about the extensive travel, is a former NASA astronaut and International Space Station Commander, Leroy Chiao. Commander Chiao, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We just heard some of those requirements when it comes to the future of astronauting. Do you think that it will be that intense in 10 years, 20 years? I know that when I was in school, they insisted I learn cursive. I barely write with a pen or pencil these days. Is there anything that you could see changing here?
Well, the requirements will probably stay about the same. You know, it's pretty much the same as when I went through. The only big change is that now they require a master's degree. Back when I was going through, they really only required a bachelor's degree in science or engineering or a medical degree. So, you know, it's probably, you know, going to stay the same because now they have a bigger pool to choose from, too. With the advent of the internet, you're getting upwards of 12,000 is the estimated number of people who will apply for this round. Contrast to that, with the time I applied before the internet, there were 2,500 applicants. So there are a lot more people to look at when you're going to put together an astronaut class.
I mean, let's just go back to when you were selected by NASA to become an astronaut in 1990. Can you take us back to those days? What was the application like process? And do you remember the phone call when they said, hey? Oh,
absolutely, yes. So the biggest difference, like I said, there really was no internet or no widespread internet. So I actually had to write to NASA on a piece of paper to request an application package, which came in a big envelope, and I filled out all the papaperwork with a pen.
In cursive, I bet, right?
I had to request transcripts and all that. And then, yeah, it was great. I put the application in, and then, you just wait. And about 9 months later, I got a phone call out of the blue asking me to come to Houston to interview. And then 4 months after that, I got that big phone call asking me to if I was interested in coming down and joining the next class. So that was obviously a thrilling day and a life-changing phone call.
And Commander, these days, there does seem to be another track to becoming an astronaut with the emerging private space industry. Do you see that route maybe being less competitive and cheaper down the road? And are there any pitfalls there?
I don't know if it'll be any less competitive. Certainly, it's possible that one or more of the commercial providers will start selecting their own astronauts and running them through their own programs. Right now, of course, you see some companies who are using former NASA astronauts like myself to go fly missions with paying customers, things like that. But that will likely evolve into some of these companies training their own. And so I would fully expect that to happen, probably not in the near term, but maybe in the medium term.
And Commander, last question I have to ask. I mean, what was the highlight of all your time spending floating above planet Earth?
Well, I would say the most awesome moment I had during my flying career was on my third mission. I was in a spacesuit. I was helping to actually build the International Space Station. I had my boots attached to the robotic arm of the space shuttle, and I was being moved from one location to another. And for several minutes, I was face down towards the Earth, and I was just watching the continents and the clouds roll by, and I couldn't see the shuttle or the station in my peripheral vision, and I just felt like a satellite flying over the Earth. And that was probably the most amazing moments of my career.
You dancing with planet Earth in the vast nothingness. Leroy Chow, thank you so much for joining us. And that does it for us tonight. I'm Gadi Schwartz. We'll see you tomorrow, but until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.